good to see y'all. Glad y'all are all here tonight. We've got some interesting things for you to hear and hopefully engage our speaker, who I'll introduce in a moment. And going to be out of here a little bit early tonight, so hope you like that. While it's on my mind, if you are out and about doing stuff with other honors students, and you think to record it for all eternity and take a picture of it, right, selfie or otherwise, please share those in such a way that we can see them and share them on our honors Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and so forth. We would like to do that if you're comfortable with that. We don't have to tag you in it. If you don't want to be tagged, we can just say, here they are, look at them. You know, we don't have to, we don't have to tag you if you want to be tagged, right? So, think of doing that. That helps us. And also, the next 3 months, till December 15th, is sort of a peak recruiting time for next year's class, because December 15th is the scholarship deadline. You can apply to come to UNA anytime, but the scholarship deadline is December 15th. There are people at your high school, and I shared this with the class this morning, so those of you who are in the honors conference have already heard this. But you, just very quickly, if there are people at your high school who are looking at UNA, or you think would be a good fit here, that you think this would be a better fit for them for maybe the places that they're looking, bring them to campus, have them stay over the night with you sometime, get them to come to preview day, bring them, arrange it with me to do a visit, the things that you did that brought you here. And you want solid people, you want quality people coming in behind you, right? That will make your investment in the honors program in UNA even stronger. You don't want a weak, lame class coming in behind you. You want a strong class coming in behind you, people that'll make you proud, kind of like, your little brother's a pain, but you don't want him, your little brother's a loser. That's not good. It's not good. You know what I mean. Right? You know what I mean. Our speaker tonight is Matthew Little, and most of you probably don't know him. He's new to UNA, or relatively new. Matthew is the director of the First Year Experience, what we call acronymically the FYE, the First Year Experience. And it's a program that he knows what it is. I barely know what it is, but it's the kind of initiative designed to make, bless you, y'all's first year experience better, stronger, and help you succeed. Because on every college campus, there's noise between the first and the second year. People struggle for all kinds of reasons. Socially, that's often a big problem. Emotionally, and academically, even strong students. Okay, even strong students. Matthew, and he would never mention this himself, was within the last 3 or 4 days in the White House being honored for his community involvement. And that says something. If you get invited to the White House, that says something about you. I'll tell you something else that tells me even more about Matthew. Our speaker for tonight was ill. Found out Sunday night that she would not be able to make it. Matthew very graciously agreed to come in on very short notice. Most people would not do that, and help us out tonight. And I wanted him to speak anyway, because if even one of you does not return next year because you do poorly in school, because you have problems, other kinds of issues that keep you from coming back, one person not returning, there are 98 of y'all next year instead of 99. That's not good. That's not what I want. That's not what any of us want. We want 100% success with y'all. And if you're that one, obviously, you especially want that, right? If you're that one. But when a person graciously agrees to step up and step in, that person has a servant's heart. And if you haven't learned this yet, that's the kind of person that you want in your life and you want to surround yourself with. So without further ado, Mr. Matthew Little.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. If you can't hear me, please let me know, and I'll be glad to speak up. Or if you can hear me and would like to stop that, let me know and I'll quiet down and just kind of get these first couple of I'd like to thank Dr. Brim for that very gracious introduction. It's been an interesting couple of days for me recently, but I'm just glad to be spending it here with you on this holiday of my own invention, which is Bow Tie Tuesday. It's always, after Monday, you need a little something to look forward to, so this bow tie is what I look forward to on Tuesdays. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the things that, being an honors program, I was an honors program member myself at my institution, but I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things both kind of emotionally, socially, and academically that are things just to be aware of, to be cognizant of, and think about as you go forward to try to make sure you're as successful as possible. Because as Dr. Brute said, that is obviously all of our goals is for you to be as successful as possible. I know it's your goal as well that you want to be as successful as possible. I'm assuming none of you came to UNA thinking, boy, I hope I'm a miserable failure and I'm out of here like within the first couple of weeks and go work at McDonald's for the rest of my life. No one, right? No one, just making sure, right? Just get the temperature of the room a little bit. So I want to tell you a little bit of story. There was a young man who was extremely successful in high school, involved in band, involved in all of the productions, graduated from high school with a 3.85 GPA, was just highly involved, very successful, received a scholarship, was able to go to college on that scholarship, and by the end of that first semester, having just basically done exactly what they had done throughout high school, ended up with a 2.3 GPA out of that first semester. And it took them the remaining of their college career to build it back up to kind of a GPA that they felt was respectable. Can anyone guess who that person was? Actually, it wasn't me. It was Dr. Robert Cook, who's my boss at the University Success Center. I was not that good of a student. I was an okay student. I was an honor student and an AP student, but Dr. Cook was much brighter than I am, and he will tell you the story if you ever get a chance as well. And he did exactly what I did when I came out of high school. I came out of high school. I did have a solid GPA. I was involved in various things on campus. I was in student government. I was also involved with a number of clubs. And throughout my 4 years of high school, I never studied once, never took a note. Really just kind of, even though it was an academically rigorous school, I was able to graduate with honors. So I thought, well, that college is going to be a breeze. I'll just waltz right into my college, and we'll just keep doing the same thing. And that's what Dr. Cook felt too. And that's where that GPA came from, that 2.3. And to be honest, my GPA is not that different from his after my first semester either. Because when I came on the campus, I didn't have really good study skills. And that's one of those things that if you're academically talented, a lot of times that's something that you can end up kind of falling under, slipping under the radar, is that because you're doing so well, people don't reach out to you and say, you know what, are you building skills that are going to give you a foundation going forward that are going to make you successful as you head into college? And so the first thing I would say is make sure you start building those skills if you don't already have them. Some of the most important things you can do as a student is learn how to take notes. I was terrible at taking notes. I'm a very auditory learner. I loved lecture because if they just kept talking to me, pretty much I'd hear it, I'd remember it, and go forward. The problem is that doesn't work very well for math and science. And I had to take, of course, a lot of math and science in college. And so while it was working for me in history and somewhat in English, it wasn't working for me in all of my classes. And so note-taking is a very important skill. And when we say taking notes, we're not talking about writing down every word, every letter that you hear. Because you're going to find there's so many different note-taking strategies that are out there. It's important that you find the one that works best for you. Sometimes it is writing down every word, every letter. Sometimes it's working as shorthand. Sometimes it's building mnemonic devices as you're going about doing what you're doing in terms of what you're hearing and thinking, all right, this is what's important. One of the important things to do is to also find out what is important. And note-taking can help you do that because you start realizing as you take notes, there are certain, let's call them tells, using a poker term. There are certain tells that every faculty member has where you start to learn, oh, wait a second, that's important. This information, while valuable, is not as important. This is the information, the data that I really need to be focused on and I really need to take care of. And you'll kind of learn the rhythms of your faculty members as you go through a semester. And note-taking is one of those things that helps you kind of focus your learning and focus on what's really important for you as a student in that class. Another important skill is one I also didn't have, which was study skills. I remember I would try to, in high school, I would spend a couple hours the night before a large paper was due, right away watch really terrible movies on TBS, and do very well on my papers. When I got into college, I tried to do the exact same thing, and I ended up spending all night long and basically writing gibberish for a number of pages, and then I turn it in and get a terrible grade on the paper. So one of the things I had to learn was, how am I going to balance my studying, and also how am I going to work with that time management? And those things are really two things that are in a lot of ways synonymous. You need to be able to do both, because you need to realize how much time is it really going to take for you to study and to really focus on the things that you need to do. And when we say time management, I try to avoid those words, time management, because a lot of people think time management, well, you know what, I spent X number of hours studying, reading, whatever, but then I did a good job. If you have spent 8 hours studying a subject, you're probably wasting a large chunk of your time. Time management isn't about managing your time, it's about managing your effort. So it's important that really you're doing effort management. Really, for the most part, when you're studying, if you can take a good chunk of time, maybe an hour, really focus in, work on whatever you're working on, it's always good to step back and take a look at what have I actually learned? What am I actually putting into my brain, and what's actually staying? What have I committed to long-term memory now? And so that's where the effort comes in as opposed to the time. Because spending 8 hours just straight reading, studying, going through all your notes, going through the books, at the end of that 8 hours, you're probably going, wait a second, what was it that I read at the very beginning? I can't remember what that was. So suddenly that 8 hours, you've lost chunks of it, just because that's all you were doing was just cramming or binge studying. And you definitely don't want to binge study. One of the important things is make sure you take those breaks. And as a part of your effort management, the one thing I will say to you, which may sound a little odd, but it's totally true, make sure you take time for yourself. Because your brain gets tired just like any other muscle. So you need to make sure that in addition to the studying and the working you're doing, do it consistently. Don't do it the day before. Do it throughout the course of the week, throughout the course of the day. But also make sure that you put time in for yourself. Make sure that you have something that you enjoy doing, something that is, if you want to just sit on the bed and stare at the wall for an hour, teach his own. That's perfectly fine. If that's what gets your brain kind of relaxed and ready to, kind of ready to accept more information, then that's what you do. If it's playing video games, if it's watching a movie, if it's talking to friends, if it's painting, if it's sculpting, if it's writing letters of adoration towards me, whatever it is, do whatever you like, whatever. But then after that hour, you go ahead. Your brain's ready, it's relaxed, it's rested, it's ready to come in and get more information and be able to start putting more information in there. And then hopefully you've also done a good job of, you've remembered that first section you learned, took the break, and now you're ready to go to the next section. One thing it's important for you to do is always reflect on the learning you're doing. And that includes even when you're studying. You always want to be able to reflect, because when you reflect, not only are you getting the information because you read it, you're also getting it because you're going back to it. You're readdressing it. You're probably going at it from a slightly different angle, because before it was just open the floodgates, let's get the information in, and now you're thinking, all right, but what did that really mean? How do I put all these pieces together? How does everything connect? And so it's always important to reflect on what you're studying, because those are things that are going to stay with you. Personalize it is always a good, when you're reflecting, is, okay, what does this mean to me? How do I go about going forward with that? So we talked a little bit about taking time for yourself. We've talked about making sure you're managing your effort. The one thing that we haven't talked about, so that's really from the academic side. Now, I'm sure there's some of you out there thinking, no, I've still got this. I'm still fine. I'm good. And that's fine. The one thing that you need to be comfortable with, and it's another big part of academics, is realizing when you're not okay. Because at the moment that you realize, you know what, I am in over my head, one thing that they show with academically talented students is they have a difficult time asking for help, because they've not asked for help before. They're not sure what the resources are because they've never had to seek them before. They've not had to ask anyone, and if they feel like, well, if I say I need assistance in an area. Am I a failure? Maybe I'm a fraud. Maybe I'm stuck in I've gotten into an honors program. I've gotten into an honors class, and I shouldn't be here. I'm over my head. You're not over your head. You're in this position because of your hard work, because of your skill. And everyone at some point in their life hits that wall. The big important thing to do is to make sure that you ask people for assistance and don't be afraid to ask for it. That's one thing that academically talented students and first-generation students have a lot in common. And especially if you're a first-generation student who's also academically talented, it is very difficult for those students to reach out and say, you know what, I'm having difficulty, what can I do? That is probably the most important question you can ever ask somebody is, you know what, I just need your help. Can you help me? The one thing I do want to tell you about in the University Success Center, which is on the second floor of the Commons. So if you're ever getting yogurt, Starbucks, bookstore, Chick-fil-A, feel free and just come up to the second floor. You may not need that assistance now. You may not need that assistance a year from now. But at some point, if you feel like, oh, I need that assistance, it's good to know where it is. And the thing is, you don't have to visit any of the resources that are available to students when you're having difficulty. So there's a Center for Writing Excellence. There's the Math Learning Center. There are research classes that the library holds. And there's also learning support, which they do things like note-taking, time management, what kind of learner am I? Those all take place. All except the library take place on that second floor. The library, of course, takes place in the library. You can go to those and use those resources whenever you feel like it. And even if you don't have anything that you really need to talk about or that you're working on, you're more than welcome just to come in, meet the consultants that are there, or if you want to take a look at what's there and say, you know what, I'd like to be one of these consultants one day, feel free and visit, because you may find that this is an opportunity for you to work and assist your fellow students through these different programs. The one thing I always recommend to people is early in a semester, go ahead and make an appointment just to see where it is, just to see how that works. So that way, if the time comes and you feel like you're panicked, you know exactly what you need to do. You don't have to worry about learning all of it while you're in a panic mode. So I will tell you my story a little bit going further. My first 2 years in college did not go well. It took me a long time to realize that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. So the definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, apparently I was a little crazy for about 2 years in college. And so one of the things that woke me up is when I realized I was really close to ending up on probation, on academic probation, and I did not want that to happen. I was paying my own way, I was using my own money, and I thought, boy, I'm just wasting my money, and I worked really hard to get that. And so I had to change what I was doing. I had to look at what I had done before and think about how do I change that? How do I study? How do I take notes? How do I focus differently in the classes? So I was able to do that. And so I spent the next 2 years on the dean's list. Graduated with honors. Right now I'm working on my doctorate, so this time next year I'll be Dr. Little. And I do recommend all of you, if you see me, just go ahead and call me Dr. Little now. Let's go ahead and get in the habit, The things that happened, though, from what I was able to accomplish through changing kind of the way I was thinking is I got to do a lot of great things in my life. It opened up a lot of doors for me. When I was a member of the honors program, I was an exchange student, a national exchange student. I got to spend a semester in Alaska, which, had I thought about it moving from Tennessee to Alaska in January, maybe not the best idea in the world, but really it was the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life, or one of the most exciting things, because at any point when you're living someplace that could kill you just because you didn't dress right, it's an exciting place to live. So I was there from January until May and had a great experience. It was fantastic. And those things would not have happened because I wouldn't have had the grades, nor would I have had the ability to handle such a different situation like going to Alaska. Because with the things I had learned, it allowed me to make sure that just because the sun came up at 10:30 in the morning and went down at 3:30 in the afternoon, it didn't mean that only when it was daylight that I needed to study, or only when it was nighttime I needed to study. Because when I got there, I was sleeping a lot because my brain was a little confused as to what was going on. I was able to keep kind of that effort management going, and I was able to make that work. So the one thing I recommend to you is definitely make sure you take care of yourself. Obviously everyone's here to support you, but you're also, you're the key player in all of this. You're the one who's going to make this possible. And if at any time you need anything from anyone in the University Success Center, please feel free and come see me. Don't tell Dr. Cook I told you about his situation. We had a problem that first semester. He did okay. He's a doctor now, so he's fine. He's not that great. And he tells other people the story. But please feel free and come by and visit us. Just if you happen to be in the Success Center, come on, or the Commons, feel free to come on up to the second floor. Be glad to help you. And if you want to see my pictures from DC, let me know. I'll show you. They're really cool. It was an awesome trip. So, do you guys have any questions as I blew through that? Yes, ma'am.
What was your major?
Uh,
Out of curiosity.
Integrative Studies, which is a fancy way of saying K through 8 education.
Gotcha. I was just curious.
Yeah. So still licensed. I'm a licensed teacher still.
Did you know the schedule of what you do?
So, you go to the Success Center's website, which is una.edu. I think this is right. Search it if it's not. /Success Center. But you can also find on the new webpage, I believe it says first year on the bottom underneath the pictures. If you click on that, the Success Center's link is there as well.
Questions? Ask them if you got them.
Fastest land animal is the cheetah at 80 miles an hour. That's an answer. I'm just throwing that in case you had that question.
What were you doing in Washington, D.C.?
So I was, I actually am fairly humble, so this is not, so I was awarded a National Leadership Award because I was for my community service. I worked for an organization called AmeriCorps 20 years ago and 15 years ago. And I was named one of the, out of 900,000 alumni, I was named one of the 20 national alumni leaders. And so they asked me to come up to DC, and I thought I was just coming to hear the anniversary speech. The anniversary was Friday, and it turns out it was I was given an intimate meet and greet with President Obama and President Clinton. And so they came in, shook hands, talked to him for a little bit, and then we went out on the lawn. And unbeknownst to me, the president mentioned me in his speech about what I had done 20 years ago in Boston.
But you didn't get a selfie.
I did not get selfies. They do not let you get selfies. They very expressly said no selfies. Give someone else your camera. They'll take a picture of you. You take a picture of them. And I picked the wrong person to hand my phone to because that. So there's a picture of me and Obama, like 5 people behind, like 5 people past me. She got a great picture. I have a great eye. I got her taken care of. Though I do have a picture of her. So if I ever see her again, we'll have some words.
What is President Obama like to talk to?
It was very businesslike and very it was very like, what's my name, where am I from, what did I do, and then a quick thank you. President Clinton was much more. It was a chat with him, but then again, I was the second person the president talked to, so it could be he didn't know how long it took him to get around. There's about 7 of us in there. How long did it take him to get around?
Tell them what AmeriCorps is.
Sure.
They may not know.
Sure. Yeah, AmeriCorps. So AmeriCorps started September 12th, 1994, before all of you were born. So, I was in the inaugural corps in 1994. I moved 3 weeks after my 18th birthday. I moved from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Boston. And essentially what AmeriCorps does, the easiest way to describe it is kind of a domestic Peace Corps. You provide service to, and it's a variety of different areas. A lot of what AmeriCorps does is working in inner city elementary schools or rural elementary schools, working with students to kind of help build capacity within those schools. Also, there are a number of groups that do, so there's a group called the Student Conservation Association, and they do summer programs, so it's great. They recruit college students primarily. They have year-long, but they also have summer programs where you can work on restoration of trails, you can work on wildlife assistance. I actually worked for an organization, not in AmeriCorps, but just to do it in Fort Scott, Kansas, at a historical site, and I was able to create a children's program for middle school students. And so you can work at historical sites and kind of do the historical part, education, or you can work marine areas. We can work on, working on protecting the coastline, tracking animals. You can do trail building. They have sites in all 50 states. So it's a great organization. And other organizations work with developing health curriculums, HIV/AIDS prevention, working with just a variety of different topics. And again, it's all over the place. I'm actually on the commission here in Alabama that helps fund AmeriCorps programs. And so there are programs in all over the state. Some like Teach for America that are kind of well known, but then others that work on literacy campaigns in different areas in the state, like Birmingham, Montgomery. There's Teach for America in Huntsville. So there's a lot of different programs here in the state.
So does that mean you're the person to talk to if you're considering AmeriCorps?
You're more than happy to talk to me. I'll tell you about my experience. I can point you in the right direction. I can't enroll you. I can't take your application. Yeah, but no, definitely. I'd be glad to talk to you about it. I did it twice, and then I worked with a number of other AmeriCorps programs, and then I was on the state commission in Tennessee for 6 years, and I've been on the Alabama commission for 3. I'll be glad to talk to you and point you in the right direction. And AmeriCorps, at the end of your service, you do 1,700 hours of service, and at the end of that time, you receive, I can't remember what it is now, I think it's $7,000 towards academic expenses. That could be either tuition, it can be repayment of student loans, or it can be any qualified educational expense, is what how the legislation's written.
Can you get a degree while you're doing it, or is it like a pause?
It depends on which program you do. Some programs are designed to continue to let you work on your degree. Sometimes they're actually located at an institution. And so, not to give away anything, but that's something obviously I'd love to see here. So some programs are kind of designed to do that. Other programs are designed to either serve as a gap year in between high school and college or after college, because you can do it for a long time. Some people do it before graduate school. And it gives you a little more experience, and it gives you a little something else on the resume. And some schools actually will double your educational award if you're going to a particular program. And there's now a new program that it's called Employers for Service, and it was just announced Friday also, where employers have signed up to say they will give preference to AmeriCorps alums. So I will tell you, why Alaska is the same reason I was in Fort Scott, Kansas. I'd never been there before. I thought, what better way to go see the country is to go someplace I've never been, so I would apply. Every time I applied for jobs, so after I was 18, I moved around a lot. So I've lived in 10 different places, I think, since that time. And Alaska was on the list. I thought, I've never been to Alaska, so I'll do that. So I applied for it, and they accepted me, and it was Alaska Fairbanks, UAF Nanoks. Ever see them around? They're blue and yellow. It was a great time. You'll learn a lot about not dying there. So if you wear glasses in Fairbanks in the winter, you can't let them touch your skin because they'll freeze to your face. At -15, your sinuses freeze inside your head, and so you could feel them tighten. That's how I knew it was -15 or lower, so I could feel them tighten. They told me that I didn't really deal with it that bad of a winter there because it was only -43 days. And it never got to -60, so I kind of lucked out with a mild winter while I was there. But it was you don't touch doorknobs until you're all the way in the house. Always wear gloves if you're there. Your lungs can't take the temperature of the air, and so you have to wear something over your face to let it go in. And the 2 big issues with driving are ice fog, which is smog that is frozen, and it kind of makes the world sparkly, and it only rises to about here. And the other is called square tires, which is where your tires have frozen to the ground, and they kind of create angles on the edge of your tires. And so if you don't pull them apart before you drive, you can rip your tires right off your wheels. Just will rip it right off. One of the things they've worked on really hard, this has changed, this was a while ago I was there, but people used to just leave their cars running all the time because you have to have an oil pan heater or else your oil will freeze, and so you plug it in or you just leave it running. And they had a bad situation where people would leave their cars running, go inside and go grocery shopping, and other people would get too cold as they walked by. They would hop in the car and then drive off and leave it there running. So people would come out and their cars would be missing. They were literally borrowed because they weren't stealing them, but you'd have to look around town to find where your car ended up. So now they have plugs almost everywhere, so you just plug your car in to keep your engine block warm enough that it won't freeze. And yet I love Alaska. So let me say, I love Alaska. I would go back in the summer. It was a great place.
One more question. Last question.
Is it difficult to be accepted into America?
It depends on the program. Depends on the program. So some programs.
What was the question?
I'm sorry. It was how difficult is it to be accepted into AmeriCorps? Certain programs are more competitive than others. Some of them have a limited number of spots. Others, though, have pretty unlimited spots, and they don't get a lot of applicants. So a lot of things. In Alabama, most of the programs aren't so big. Teach for America can be a little difficult sometimes because they've got a brand name. The organization I was listed here is competitive. You won't always apply to it.
You know, while he was talking, I mean, it really is true that asking for help can be very difficult. And more difficult maybe for this demographic than other groups on campus. The two of the things that have helped me more in life, and it took me a lot longer to learn them than how old you guys are. One was to learn that if I want my day to go smoothly, I have to be willing to ask people for help at different points. Can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? And the other, of course, is to be able to say that you're sorry. Like, dude, you messed up. You trusted me. You know, I'm sorry. You know, and if you do those two things, but there's two sides of the same coin. If that's not a country western song, I don't know what it is. So, give it up.